There are a lot of people right now who are covering the insanity of what's happening on the front line in Ukraine, and I say with good reason, with good justification, because it is an absolute collapse. In the southern region of the front line, like Zaporozhye, for example, um, Russia is securing about 100 square kilometers per week. Per week. This is not only the fastest level of Russian advances that we've seen since the start of the conflict, this is like an unprecedented level of speed that we are witnessing right now. And when you get that, you also are going to have dramatic increases in the level of volunteers from Russia who sign up to join the military. Maybe we'll be getting into those numbers again, 50, 60,000 volunteers per month across the country. Meanwhile, Ukraine is stripping people off of the streets still, sending them in the territorial defenses into Zaporozhye, and the front line is just collapsing. So it is really a dire situation for the Ukrainians. And that's why I think, amongst other reasons like the corruption scandal, they are kind of bending the knee to the U.S. on this one and saying, oh, we'll agree to the terms that Trump is putting forward. Maybe not all of them, maybe most of them, but this is a big step. And this would be the reason why, okay? This would be the clearest example as to why, because the situation is just falling apart. You can even look on the Ukraine map websites, so like deep state maps, and you can go back over the past few weeks and see just how much the Russians have advanced in the month of November alone, or the month of October alone. And it will shock you. It really will. Because nowhere along the front line is it going well for the Ukrainians. Okay. Now, before I get into the maps and I show you exactly what is going on and what I think is going to happen, because that's the more important part here. What can we expect to happen if there are no dramatic altercations in the events as we see them today? No peace deal signed, no ceasefire, whatever. Before we get into that, I want to show you this, because this is a common sentiment. I could show you many videos such as this from soldiers in Mirnograd or Pokrovsk or Kupiansk. This is the common sentiment that we are now witnessing on many Ukrainian Telegram channels from soldiers who are taking video of themselves explaining the situation on the front line. This, of course, is being denied officially by the Ukrainian government, by the armed forces of Ukraine, but this is the truth. Okay, so let's listen. Good morning from the Donetsk region. Emotions that I will no longer be able to contain. Forgive me. This is a Ukrainian soldier. But when you look, when I drive through this hole, he says, and see the cars that die every day when I go to evacuate. When the guys are standing, I take them away. Keep in mind, the translations are a little bit off, but you'll get the idea. He says, I take them away. They're sitting in my car, dirty. You can see everything through them. Theirs are so red in general, and look, I didn't do anything to them. I did nothing, but I just see them, Like, they're already coming at us, they're hurting, and they're just running around there without a car, because there's no way they'll get there without a car. They could have survived, or they'll even take them away if they're there. Well, there are others, and when you look at them, you wonder, these guys no longer have any hope of winning. You know why? Because we're all sitting around doing nothing. Yes, I don't speak for everyone, but most people. You see, they just, well, what they're doing, what are they fighting on? What are they driving on? There is nothing. There is nothing. The Russians come in with equipment, with everything. Our guys go on foot. On foot, because there's nothing to ride. That is a Ukrainian soldier crying in Donetsk region. It's horrifying. It's so sad to see this. Because instead of having the troops evacuate from regions like Mirnograd, or Pokrovsk, they are forcing them to stay there. They're forcing them to fight. And if they don't, they will try to flee in some circumstances. Maybe they will succeed, but in many cases, they are treated as traitors going AWOL or trying to flee the front line. Okay, and you know what happens to people who do that. It is not a good situation. It does not end well for them in many cases. Okay. This is the phone of a fallen Ukrainian soldier showing his last Google searches. We've seen stuff like this throughout the conflict. This one, again, very sad. Ukraine-Russia negotiations in his search history. Zelensky negotiations, Pokrovsk importance. The war will end in 2025. The war will end in the summer. Trump talks win. Trump stop war. Trump on negotiations. Trump aid to Ukraine. Trump, when will the war end? Putin talks. When will there be war? So you get the idea. The Ukrainian soldiers are in a horrible mental state. Morale is low across the board. They are scared, and the front lines are collapsing. Okay. Now, the question then becomes, where does this all go from here? Where does this go in the future? What can we expect moving into 2026? What can we expect in the two major points of contention that I think we should look at? These are usually the changing points of great territorial losses or gains in the conflict, as we've seen for almost 4 years now. What can we expect in spring of 2026? And what can we expect as a whole in 2026? So let's break it down. As we look at the major goals of the Ukrainians in the next year, 2026, what are they hoping to do? Ideally, what they should be doing right now is moving their forces backward along the front line where they can, like surrounding Zaporozhye, for example, surrounding Dnieper, for example, and building up new fortifications there with the effort of saving as many men, saving as many fortifications, saving as many resources as possible as they slow the Russian advance. That would be the logical step here. But instead, you have Zelensky, who's going to the West, trying to sell these stories that if they just give them more money, they will be able to do another offensive somewhere. I don't know where, but this is the claim that is being made by Zelensky, that some point or another, there will be an offensive, despite the fact that the last offensive, if you can call it that, was really what took place in Kursk, where they went into the Russian Federation and started massacring a bunch of civilians. And that was last year. This year, we didn't really see much in terms of a Ukrainian counteroffensive. Nothing happened. Of course, there were still events taking place in Kursk. It was being cleared out, but really nothing happened, okay? So even this entire year, they did not materialize any sort of substantive counteroffensive. So I don't know what the idea going through Zelensky's head is, but it should be that. Move the men back, move the resources back, slow the Russian advance, and try to drag them down further on the map. Unfortunately for, I guess, the Ukrainian soldiers who are being sent to the front line, rounded off the streets, that's not what Zelensky is doing, as we know. As for the Russians, their goal in 2026 is, well, we're going to break it down, but it kind of centers around a few areas. The first and most important area is going to be up here, the Kramatorsk, Slaviansk, Konstantinovka salient. This is central on the battlefield, if you will. This is very important. This is Kramatorsk, as you all probably know, and Slaviansk are the cities in which this all originated. These are some of the most well-defended areas in the Ukrainian front, and they are defended from the east. As you can see, the Russians are beginning to move around. And as I'm going to show you, as I break down the maps, the Russians appear to be preparing for what is likely going to be a semi-encirclement of Slaviansk and Kramatorsk, and Konstantinovka is all the way down here, so it is also not in a good situation, but they're preparing for what looks like a semi-encirclement of the salient. We also have what is probably going to be extensive advancements in the north, the northeast, in the Kharkov region. As you've probably heard, there is a lot going on in Kupiansk right now. Kupiansk is basically fully under Russian control. This is the administrative city that oversees all of the Kharkov region. So even though you see Kharkov city is further to the northwest, Kupiansk is a very important city because it lies on the Oskol River. And this was of great importance to both the Ukrainians and Russians as the Kharkov region switched in I guess, control over the years. Now it is back firmly in the Russian hands, and we will likely see the reinforcement of Russian positions all across these lines. In all likelihood, we're probably, and I think this is going to be one of the major offensives that we see Russia make, and there's a reason for it. We are, in all likelihood, going to see the Russians advance along the entirety of this line right here, which is going to be the Oskol River, goes all the way down here. And they are going to advance along that line from east of the Oskol River, so from that point to the right on the map, and north of the Donets River. Now, this is important because as the Russians begin to do the semi-encirclement of the Kramatorsk, Slavyansk, Konstantinovka salient, which is down here, the Russians are going to need to have ample reinforcements in the north. So that is what we can expect from the Russians in the north. I would not be surprised, and the maps I'm going to show you now are from Mikhail Valtersin, who is a great journalist, commentator, and veteran who's been covering this conflict extensively. I would not be surprised if by springtime we see the maps move to around the point that he has drawn here. The Russians will secure this northeastern border area in Kharkov region, which, by the way, the U.S. is demanding that the Russians entirely pull out of Kupiansk, pull out of Kharkov. They have to concede all of that to Ukraine per the 28-point deal, which is literally insane. But they need to pull out of all of that. And then we look to the south down here. This is also a very important point, and it is actually where we see the single largest advancements of the Russian military in this southern offensive anywhere along the front line right now. What you have to understand about what is going on in the south is that the Ukrainian forces in the south are the territorial defense forces. So these are the guys that are being essentially rounded up off the streets and sent to the front line with little to no training. And it's a really bad situation here. You can look again on pro-Ukraine maps like Deep State, and you will see the collapse over the past 2 weeks is just insane. In the first 10, 11 days of this month, the Ukrainians lost about 150 square kilometers in the Zaporozhye region. This is collapsing at lightning speed. This is an absolute crisis. It is really, really bad. And the worst part of all for the Ukrainians is when you look at the map that lays between the 68 kilometers that lay between where the Russian forces are right now. And by the way, this is a Ukrainian map that I'm looking at, live UA mapped. And where Zaporozhye city is, there is not much in terms of defense fortifications between where the Russians currently are and Zaporozhye city. Further to the north, you've got the Dnepro, you've got the Dnepro city, Dnepropetrovsk. And what I can probably say is going to happen over the next several months going into the spring is that the troops that are advancing right here, the Russian troops that are advancing with lightning speed, I mean, all of this was literally taken over the past few weeks. They are going to be moving due west towards Zaporozhye and towards Dnepro. Now, what can we expect by spring? What can we expect by autumn, later in the year, in 2026? Well, we go back to the map of Mikhail Valtersin. He predicts, and I would have to agree because it makes a lot of sense, that not only will you see the map moving closer towards Zaporozhye and towards Dnepro, but you will also see the map moving further northeast. And this is to commit to the partial encirclement of Konstantinovka, of Kramatorsk, and of Slavyansk, okay? So this will kind of be phase one of what we can imagine will take place. And the Russians, if they move forward in these directions, will eventually, in all likelihood, probably try to move along the border of Zaporozhye city or in Zaporozhye city and secure the city. And by the end of 2026, They will probably avoid and try to encircle Pavlograd right here because there are a lot of Ukrainian defense fortifications there. By the spring of 2026, the Ukrainians are probably going to try and advance about 6,000 square kilometers within the next 3 to 4 months. So this is the red line that you see, the dark red line. That is where we can expect to see in the next 3 to 4 months. Yes, that is a huge swap of territory in a very short time. But, this has happened throughout the conflict. We've seen offensives fail. We've seen offensives move territory from one party to another, one belligerent to another in very quick succession over the span of months in the past. And it is not immune to happen again. I mean, this could very well happen again. And if things continue in the way that they are, we can only expect that they will continue in this direction. But as you can see, the most important part is right down here, doing the semi-encirclement of Konstantinovka, Kramatorsk, and Slaviansk. Now, you'd also have the semi-encirclement coming from the north. This would be the direction here from Petropavlivka and Barankovo. Now, what could end up happening, and we don't have any, I guess, clear indication as to what we're going to see, but we know that Russian troops are advancing inside of Liman right now, which is to the north of this salient, this extremely important salient. But what we can also possibly see is that west of the Oskil River, we will see Russian troops potentially stage an operation for Izium, which would fully solidify the ability for the Russians to encircle the Slaviansk, Kramatorsk, Konstantinovka salient. So overall, the situation is very bad. The most important salient that the Ukrainians have inside of Donetsk still is looking like we're headed towards a semi-encirclement. Obviously, this will take time. We will see this materialize if things continue on this path by spring, hopefully. I guess, not hopefully. We don't want to say that on YouTube, right? We're not pro-Russian here. We're just objective reporters, right? We don't want to offend any sensibilities at the YouTube Community Guidelines team. But if things go accordingly, hopefully we see peace. That's what we really want. But given the fact that Zelensky is refusing peace, we have to hope for the most simple outcome of this conflict that is going to take the least amount of lives in the quickest fashion possible. We don't want this conflict to continue. We want it to come to an end. We want a peace deal. Zelensky is refusing that. In all likelihood, this conflict is going to be settled on the battlefield. And the most important question in the Donetsk region is this salient. Trump has even admitted that only about 18% of Donetsk remains inside of Ukrainians' hands. This is the major portion that he is referring to right now. So, not looking good at all for the Ukrainians, and I don't understand why they just don't agree to all of the terms set by the Russians or the United States at this point, because as they continue to prolong this conflict, it is only going to get worse. Their negotiating position is only going to become weaker, and the Russians are only going to guarantee themselves that they will have more territory when it's all said and done. If the Ukrainians wait until a year from now to begin serious negotiations, the Kharkov region is not going to be in question anymore. Right now, according to the U.S. peace deal, they're still asking for that. By then, by the time things are hammered out, Kupiansk will not be up for debate. The northeast of Kharkov will not be up for debate. This region will not be up for debate. And it's as simple as that. Before you leave, I want to say thank you for the support, because after 2 years of being banned, we are finally back home on YouTube. So be sure to subscribe to our channel and also join as a member on our channel using the link at the top of the description. I rely on the generous support of viewers like yourself to get the truth out to as many people as possible. You can also support the show on Locals or Give Sin Go. The mainstream media and the powers that be are never going to stop attacking us for bringing the truth to as many people as we do. Thank you so much for your support.